But first, the death toll continues to rise across Turkey and Syria, at this hour surpassing 12,000 since Monday's massive earthquake. The WHO warning tonight that number could reach 20,000 killed. At least 3 U.S. citizens are among the dead. Rescue teams are digging through rubble of collapsed buildings bucket by bucket in a desperate search for survivors. CBS's Chris Livesay is going to start us off tonight from the disaster zone in Turkey. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Nora. Rescuers are sleeplessly peeling back the 14 stories of apartment building that came crashing down behind me. So far, none of the 28 families who lived here have been found alive, but these bulldozers and cranes are not giving up. Sometimes bottle caps are more powerful than bulldozers. Like for little Muhammad, who spent 2 days buried alive. Yet for every Muhammad, there's also a Gulshin, a young woman once engaged to marry Yunus. He weeps. And he's not alone. Inside a gymnasium, the earthquake turned into a morgue, just as it turned this apartment building into a mausoleum. Some 90 people were sleeping inside when it collapsed. Rescuers call for silence. They listen for signs of life. Their hopes are dashed for now, says Gunea Kish. She hasn't slept since her sister went missing beneath the rubble, along with her husband and 2 children. If you could tell your sister and her family something right now, what would you tell them? I would hug them and tell them I love them, she says. I still have hope. International help is on the way, including American search and rescue teams who arrived here today. The U.S. ambassador to Turkey, Jeff Flake, tells us.
It's 161 in terms of personnel, 12 dogs, and a lot of equipment, about 170,000 pounds of equipment. So it's a big group. They're big guys and ready to help.
They're setting up camp in the remote corners of Turkey's earthquake zone, where survivors are desperate for aid, and even more desperate in Syria, already reeling from war and the refugee crisis. The only road the UN authorizes to carry supplies from Turkey to Syria is now mangled by the earthquake. The search and rescue effort continues behind me, and it could not be more urgent. The first 3 days after an earthquake offer the best opportunity for finding survivors, and the sun has just set on day 3. Nora?
Chris Livesay, thank you so much for your reporting.
All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh. Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Makakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the Slakia. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, where I learned this truth from, and I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today I just want to go into, the earthquake that happened in Turkey and Syria. And the title reads, Turkey, Syria earthquake death toll tops 12,000. So I'm just going to bring out a couple scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And it says, thinly stretched rescue teams on Wednesday continue searching for survivors buried in the rubble of thousands of buildings destroyed in Turkey and Syria by catastrophic earthquakes and aftershocks that killed more than 12,000. Amid calls for the Turkish government to send more help to the disaster zone, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan visited a tent city in Kahramanmaraş, where people forced from their homes are living. He decided, he conceded, shortfalls early in Turkey's disaster response, but vowed that no one would be left in the streets. Turkey now has tens of thousands of aid personnel in the quake zone, and search teams from more than 24 countries have joined them. But with the devastation so widespread, many are still waiting for help, and hope of rescuing survivors is fading. Slovakia. Experts said the survival window for those trapped under the rubble of collapsed buildings or otherwise unable to access water, food, protection from the elements, or medical attention was closing rapidly. At the same time, they said it was too soon to abandon hope for more rescues. The first 72 hours are considered to be critical as the condition of people trapped and injured can deteriorate quickly and become fatal if they are not rescued and given medical attention in time. Steve Godby, a natural hazards expert in Nottingham Trent University in England, Turkey's disaster management agency, said Wednesday that the recovered bodies of people who died in the earthquakes but cannot be identified will be buried within 5 days, even if they remain unnamed. The agency, known as AFAD, said unidentified victims will be buried following DNA tests, fingerprinting, and after being photographed for future identification. The move is in line with Islamic funeral rites, which require a burial to take place as quickly as possible for a person's death. In the Turkish city of Malatya, bodies were placed side by side on the ground, covered with blankets, while rescuers waited for funeral vehicles to pick them up, according to former journalist Ozel Pakal, who saw 8 bodies pulled from the ruins of the building. Pakal took part in the rescue efforts and said he believes at least some of the victims may have frozen to death as temperatures dipped from 21 degrees Fahrenheit. Today isn't a pleasant day because as of today, there is no hope left in Malatya. Pakal told the Associated Press by telephone, no one is coming out alive from the rubble. Pakal said a hotel building collapsed in the city and more than 100 people may be trapped. He said there was a shortage of rescuers in the area he was in, and the cold road closures and damage in the region have also impeded mobility and access. Our hands could not pick up anything because of the cold, said Pakal. So for now, that's all I'm going to read, but pretty much, ultimately that's judgment from the Lord, for what those heathens did to us. But just like they said in the news clip, it could go from over 12,000 up to 20,000, So that's one thing that, we should fear. We should fear the Lord, when he brings out judgment on a mass scale like this. So I'm going to go to the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and I'm going to start at verse 4. And Yahushua answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Hamashiach, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrow. So yes, the earthquake that happened over in Turkey and Syria, that was prophesied to happen. Even the earthquake that took place in Buffalo, New York, not too long ago. These are earthquakes happening in diverse places, because the Lord is getting ready to bring, great judgment upon the earth, But we have earthquakes, pestilences, and famines, The famine is still, on the horizon, because of food shortages and, certain, factories being burned down as well, But ultimately, all these things are leading up to the time of Jacob's trouble, So I'm going to go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 30. And I'm going to start at verse 6. Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness? Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And yes, that's the time that is vastly approaching, the time of Jacob's trouble, which is ultimately, for, the entire world, but in particular is for the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, But ultimately it's going to be a worldwide thing, everyone is going to suffer, in these last days by way of, the certain judgments that the Lord is going to bring out upon the earth, So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I just want to, bring that out, go into that article because, again, we're still approaching the time of Jacob's trouble, and you're going to hear about more judgment, going out. And that's just a, just one example of how the Lord is going to bring judgment upon, first and foremost, Esau, Edom, these heathen nations, and the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, And the he that should be saved out of it, the elect. Only the elect of the nation of Israel will be delivered from the trouble to come. So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rakakukdash. I like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I see you, Shalom.